So I'm in my living room. I took the HoloLens home for the weekend. I'm sitting there and I look over to my right and I see the director, Kirkland. And she's sitting there on the couch, telling me to solve the mystery. And I'm just like, okay, this is awesome. And I can't even begin to imagine what we could do with storytelling and with games with that new power of having people in your space, in your home. Fragments is this high-tech crime drama, one of the initial applications that we're releasing with the development edition of HoloLens, where you become the main character and solve mysteries that are actually brought to life by your world.
Investigating the death of Jacob Baker.
One of the key things on HoloLens is the world awareness. As we scan the room, we exactly know where the walls are, where the ground is, where the tables are.
Whenever we know all the information about your room, it starts looking for different points where a character could put his hand and lean against.
When you're playing Fragments now, we're able to put things like, a thumbprint on a matchbook that we hide behind your coffee table, so you actually have to physically get up, you find that pivotal clue and solve the mystery. One of the awesome things about HoloLens is, at its core, it's a Windows 10 computer. It lets you make a Windows 10 application and lets you develop these awesome applications that are ranging everything from as small as Calculator to as big as Halo 5. Working with Asobo Studio on HoloLens has been an awesome experience. We got a chance to actually work with a developer and explore what it meant to be somebody outside of Microsoft making the world's first holographic experiences.
We have our own proprietary engine, like many game studios have, and we didn't have any problem porting that to HoloLens.
It's a very interesting aspect of creating games on HoloLens is that it's so fresh, it's so new. You basically need everyone to focus on this new paradigm.
I really hope that Fragments shows developers that there's a great opportunity to tell amazing stories with the player at the heart of the experience for HoloLens.
Director, we're receiving a call from the Pentagon. Maybe trying to smooth things over?
But I honestly think we've just begun to scratch the surface, and that other game makers are going to take HoloLens and be able to really surprise people.
So as you can see on this video, the objects are geolocalized, but also the characters. So basically you can scan the room around you, but the characters will use our furniture actually in the game. That's one of the great things about the game. But you've had several problems to solve, is that you tend to forget some of the objects in and around the scene because you've had to readapt the script, the scenario. It's not the same thing as for a movie, for instance, or in virtual reality. So what were the problems that you encountered and how did you solve them? There are great differences, between mixed reality and virtual reality, which is close to and shares some of the specificity of writing for augmented reality. But the thing is that with augmented reality, you don't want to cut the viewer from the experience, from the world where they are in. No, you want to maintain that connection and add elements to the real world. So in terms of fiction, you need to be able to involve the player, in the case of Fragments, involve them in a new universe that actually takes into account everything that actually exists around the player, around him. So no play, no movie has, even no VR experience has offered that before, to have the viewer, the user himself or herself playing, but in his own home, in his own kitchen, When you look at a movie, it's easier to get lost in the picture because you have different characters and you get carried along. But in mixed reality, it's much more difficult because you stay yourself. You're still yourself. Yes, when you develop such a a hologram system, you have obviously to make it credible. You need a specialized sound as well in order to anchor the virtual objects in the real world. And it's the same thing for the user. The user is part of the real world. They get to choose where they look at, what they look at, where they go. So there are small, low-level tricks, I would say. First of all, the holographic characters have to follow the main user and have to react to the reactions of other people in the room, whilst respecting the rules of social distance, which is more or less universal, whereby if you come too close to the hologram character, that character has to react because you are encroaching upon their personal, intimate zone, if you will. So people are so used to being passive that it's not easy to become an active user. Moving around also in a room is not easy. We had an investigation game where you basically needed to look around your own room, and you had to move around your own room and look behind the cushions, look behind the couch, etc. So we had to create a scenario to encourage people to actually move around, to create a new grammar, if you will, to make them understand that they had to look for things physically. So Holoto is another experience where you can discover cities like Rome, for instance. So, for instance, you have instead of having an arrow to tell you to look right, you have a lizard that goes one way, and so the lizard is here to indicate that you have to go left or right or turn the head. In Fragments there are rats, but there are also sounds to sort of direct the movement of the user. So what are those? Can you tell us about those tricks that you used? Well, there is one thing that really informed the shape of the story. In Fragments, just to give you a bit of context, this is an investigation game. The user basically has the capacity in the game to project crime scenes, how crime actually happened in his brain. So that's the plot of the story. So the whole point of the game is to find clues to reconstruct a crime scene. But what's difficult is that you have to so-called specialize the space, organize the space, and direct the user to go to certain areas. So the idea is that you have to be very precise, you have to pay attention to the fragments of memories, and you have to be able to find the clues, and you have to be able to find those fragments of memories, and provided that as a user you can look physically, you can look at the fragments in the room, then that would reconstruct bit by bit the crime scene. So we realized that at first, when we gave away how the crime scene happened, people did not really look for the clues and did not understand actually the story. So now we've seen that rather than giving it all away at the beginning, we incite and encourage the user to build the crime scene and the story himself. That way it's a much better way to enter that universe.
So the brain needs to rediscover the place and see where the people are, and sometimes I didn't even see them. There was a glass of water and so on. It's so natural that So the brain needs to be trained for these little fragments and go out and get them and recompose them. So really memorize what's happening. And when you come back into the scene later on, you can remember much better of what was marked on the floor or whatever, than a matchbox you've got to go and look for on a settee. When you look for it, it's really difficult. But the fact of looking for them means that you can find them. Yeah, I think everybody can understand that the index, the clue is not just the object, it's the interpretation of the object. So I mean, you can find objects, but the charm of the investigation is sort of a cluedo in a way. It's more the meaning that you give to the object, being able to take them and observe them rather than finding the object itself. Yeah, it's a sort of a minority report at home sort of thing. And, anything else to add, or we can start with question and answer? What's interesting is that with all the previous speakers, particularly what Gilles Fressinier said, we're very lucky with this, because apart from the promotional side of things, but which is a good way of showing what the game is, what Microsoft has, as we've heard with the previous speakers, is really invested to see what the challenges are, to have this experience, because it was a real challenge. So, I mean, it's not something you can buy in the general public. I mean, there's going to be no audience for it. They're not going to make money out of this. But yet there really is the game as such. So to understand the issues and to see how we can... I mean, what the cost is, what it means to tell a story like that, taking into account the real world. And one of the main things of the program as a whole is, I think, true for the whole of reality. It's the idea of... I mean, it's the centrality of things. So, I mean, it's a filter of reading, looking at your own visuals and improving each of the ideas that you've got when you're reading things for mixed reality. Because when you don't do it, you find people falling back into a pathway, into a slot, if you like, of cinema or games or whatever. It's not worth it. Media as a whole. So they were talking about video games, but can it be adapted to a film or to a documentary? Can you script something? Well, that's a big question. What's clear is, well, I'm going to try and get around this, but there's nothing. I mean, the goggles are coming now. The idea is not to stop, but for the time being, one of the major applications, one of the major apps, is because it's there to help people working in a context where there's these lengthy processes, and when you've got to have massive work power or manpower, for instance, for maintaining planes. And so we know that we're not going to be able to train everybody to do this worldwide. So the reason, the augmented reality means you can help people in having the training quicker or limited training if they can't see it, and then moving forwards in an area where they'd like to have a job, say, not just physically in a place, but being able to recognize an object and project the different animals. So typically with image recognition, and you put that with neuronal networks and so on, and form recognition, there really is something in the future to have real real images and have things in real time for anybody. And I think we need to think about this. So everything needs to be created in terms of narrative. So we're just at the beginning. So if you've got any ideas, there's lots of startups to create, whatever. Have you got any questions? Down there at the back. Yeah, hello. It's not really a question. I mean, listen to you, I may think of another idea. In your program, you're working on memory and memorizing stimulation. I find that very interesting, but I was wondering, is this a program which could be developed for people, because it's all being personalized and scanned? Could it be stimulation for people who've got Alzheimer's, who've got difficulties with their memories? And I'm not writing a script writer here, but people finding their own story to not lose their reference, if you like. So it was just a question on, I was wondering when I was listening to you, because I thought it was very interesting as a scriptwriter, because it does open incredible spaces, but then there is a lot of use in this too. And I think it's a tool which is incredible. Well, the way you present it there, it seems really appropriate and relevant. I'm not a specialist in Alzheimer's, so I find it very difficult to say yes or no whether it's relevant as a tool. But one of the characteristics is that of mixed reality, and it's striking when you do it, is that few people have already had an opportunity to do it. But, people have got a preconceived idea, but it's totally different from VR. And one of the big differences is that you're staying connected to the real world, the outside world. And we keep eye contact, we keep the possibility of a verbal exchange or even body language. As human relationships, I mean, even with the headset on or whatever, you still remain human. And with several people as well, while you're in the real situation. And with Alzheimer's disease, I think that somebody with the illness in their environment try and perhaps maintain the neuron connections linked to that central model. So you can have holograms, you can do exercises and so on, but it's something which seems I'm not a doctor, but it seems interesting. But Asobo isn't working on this sort of project, but there are things in their field of research. I mean, there's stuff in medical research and so on, and as well work with autists as well, research with autists. I'm sure we'll be hearing about this in the first few months to come, in a few months to come.
L'arrêté virtuel réalité augmentée pour les applications professionnelles de santé, etc.
So, virtual reality was created about 25 years ago for medical health. So everything was there in a virtual reality. It's not something that's going to happen. It's something that was developed 25 years ago. And people of the FRV, they've known for the past 10 years that doctors have been using it, the surgeons have been using it. Yeah, with Parkinson's, I mean, people who've got difficulties staying upright or whatever, it's something that can be used. I mean, there are other things that exist as well. It's not the same community. It's a different community which is not well known yet. now it's going to be the general public, but you mustn't forget that augmented reality has always been used for industry, for health training. But it doesn't mean, there's lots to do. And the prices are coming down for the general public. And this will provide other uses. Yeah, absolutely. What you say is so true. Today, personally, I'm focusing on video games because when I was 14, my mother invited me to a seminar in Paris where you could do virtually what we're going to do today with these incredible machines. We could do that then, but and they were really good. But now the problem is the use and the tools to do with it. So you can have the research units and so on. Yes, it's already applied, but in maintenance, things like this. So it's going to be moving along very quickly in the months to come. And there's a lot of things as well, yeah. Final question. So we're going to have to move on if we want to ask questions to David. It'll be outside the room. Yeah, quick question. Apple launched development for virtual reality. Is this going towards democratization? Or is this the first window of broadcasting? Well, it's quite different. In what you just said as well, you said window. And I think that the biggest difference is there. To say that the difference with augmented reality is that, window's a window, this is really a window, but you don't have this one anymore. You're directly into the next universe, and that's the big difference. And it's very technical, but maybe this isn't the place. But one of the big differences with HoloLens is being able to scan the environment, and this is perhaps a bit new. Even if it's some of the sort of experimentation that's been going on, but the specificity of the ON is the capacity that it's got, the ability to scan and to analyze the environment, which can help it to understand. And so it can adapt, it can write stories and take into account things and where the story is and analyze. So they were talking about differences in hardware and it's a detail because it's going to emerge, but that could be the equivalent. In terms of democratization for the general public, last year there was Pokemon that brought augmented reality, and it's true that it's something that's going to fascinate other developers and producers, because people will think, well, prices are going to come down and people are going to buy much easier. So thank you very much.